It's Susan Lindner. I'm your host of the Innovation Storyteller Show, where we talk about the amazing stories that actually drive the innovation process in our biggest organizations around the world today. And I am so excited to have Melora Zaner, who is here with me today from TIAA. She is the Chief Design Officer, and she is responsible for building a design-led culture that strengthens the design craft and capabilities of the organization while creating this incredible end-to-end experience vision that really unlocks innovation and inspires and empowers TIAA's clients to pursue retirement security in a way that they haven't before. You should also know that Melora is responsible for defining and implementing an integrated design system and a center of design excellence, and introducing that kind of rigor into their innovation processes and creating a cohesive TIAA experience across all the touch points of an organization. I don't know how many of you out there would be craving this opportunity to have a wholly unified and cohesive sense of the company across the entire organization, but that's what design work and design-led culture really feels like. Now, Melora's background is intriguing and enticing to me because she has more than 20 years in this field across banking, media, and tech, and has an incredible track record of building these cross-functional teams that really get how design and strategy work together. She also has 30 patents in financial, social media, and cloud computing services too. So this kind of work goes beyond just living the corporate life. It is a matter of taking what is the essence of a company and finding a way to design it for its utility and the benefit of all the stakeholders. So I'm just so grateful to have Melora on the show with me today. Thank you so much for joining me.
It's such a pleasure, and I'm a fan, and storytelling is at the heart of design. So having a chance to talk about it and innovation is a wonderful opportunity.
So let's start at the beginning. I always ask people how they got here because there's no one direct path that gets to innovation, but I feel like your path is singularly unique, Melora, because you certainly didn't start off as a corporate wannabe. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it's fair to say. I started playing guitar when I was like 9.5, and I thought I was going to be a musician. In fact, my career started out as being the lead singer of a Southern Gothic punk band. We were based in Nashville, Tennessee, and we got to tour the South. And it was during an exciting time in the South when we had like REM and the B-52s coming up, but there was Black Flag and others. And I have to say, there weren't many role models for me as far as women leading punk bands. And that's a bit of the rebel in me. I do want to say, though, I think that there's such a natural thread that's happened. And that is, I was honing the skills, the mastery of storytelling, and thinking about how might I create a space for people to be able to connect and build history and memories together. And just realizing that I'm an observer of life. And I think some of the best country songs are coming from people who are observers of life and who listen into other people's conversations. And I was doing the same. And I found myself either writing a song or actually trying to figure out how might I solve what they were just discussing. And that really led me from music to design, where I saw, I can also create space and create environments for people to connect and build history and memories together. And probably the punk rocker in me is what also led me to, in those environments where I was designing, wanting to challenge the norm and really be able to look at something in a new way, like turning that problem around and seeing that, is there another way to do this? And it just I just fell into collecting patents.
Them as if they just kind of showed up on your doorstep, right? There's no real thought process there. So, I mean, just tell us a little bit about that process from punk rocker to patent holder. Like, what is that? What is that transition like, Melora?
Okay, I'll have to borrow that because that was brilliant. Writing a song is innovation in my mind. You are trying to find a way to create a sense of emotion, to spark people's imagination. And it just was natural then to also, as designing, trying to solve the same things. How might I tell the story in a new way? How might we solve this problem? What are the things others have missed? And then how might we find opportunity to fill those gaps? All of that being said, it's all about this human observation, the true passion and love for deeply human moments of hope, love, fear, excitement, anxiety, just understanding all of that and observing humanity and finding those moments where we could actually solve something important for them and finding ways of doing it that are natural. I love those simple innovations that are just like oxygen. I'm going to give you an example. The first patent came from me working with a group of really talented young people in an incubation team at Microsoft. And that group of people, we were looking to find ways to create social experiences that would attract young people and reimagine what Microsoft could mean to them, because at the time, Microsoft probably still is all about getting your homework done and being productive. And we wanted to see, is there a way to also enter their social life? And from some of the experiments we did, that's where we came up with the animated stickers that you use today in iMessage, in Messenger, WhatsApp. I could keep going. Everybody does it. You send this animated sticker because we all know an emoji is not enough. The thing that's so beautiful about that invention is that was done like in the year 2000, and it's like oxygen for us today, and MSN Messenger is gone. And it just taught me something. Songs last longer than the singer. One of my songwriting friends said that, and it's true. Songs last longer than the singer. It's also true in the experiences we design. The technology will come and go, but it's those experiences we've had on top where we've built history and memories. Those are what are everlasting. And so that's what I think, that the connection just is very clear for me, that the two go hand in hand. And the songwriting, the being a singer, the punk rocker, the challenger, to looking for those opportunities to create something that can be like oxygen for us and be integrated into our lives and have true meaning, no matter the technology underneath. Well, it's a little long-winded, but yeah.
No, not at all. I think it's a really deep rumination on how this comes to be, and also how we think about the frameworks we create and where we place them. I'm reminded of, Tom Jones just passed away, right? Our What's New Pussycat and a bazillion other songs. And I'm sorry, I'm thinking of Tony Bennett. I apologize. Tom Jones is still with us. Tony Bennett said, there are no old songs. There are just only good songs that remain. And I think you're right. The songwriter also does move on, but that our experience of the song stays with us forever. The other part of that, though, is, my last podcast guest was a guy who was talking about spatial computing. And so they're really beginning to look at experiences, and he calls them not inspirational experiences, but aspirational experiences, where the format of where it takes place on your watch, on your phone, on your computer, with a VR headset doesn't matter. The question is, what is the experience that will transport people to and will transform people as well? And so, as you and I were talking about, the work that you do at TIAA is so important because it's addressing and designing effectively how we retire and how we think about our own retirement and what's happening in our own lives, what we are inspired by, but also what we aspire to in our lives.
And that's such a big, hard problem. There is a retirement crisis in America. 40% of Americans are going to run out of money.
40%.
And that's scary. And then, I don't know about Social Security, but I think we're all waiting for the day that finally runs out. And we're living longer. And just think about our hopes and fears, our excitement, our also concern and worry that can happen around what retirement means. So I love what you were talking about with aspiration. I think it's an opportunity And TIAA, we're having these conversations of how might we redefine retirement and help people understand the benefit of the kinds of services we offer, because truly we are able to offer a retirement paycheck so that you keep earning a paycheck even once you've hit that milestone. And if we were to redefine retirement planning for longevity planning, I think it gets to be a very interesting conversation. And that is honestly such a huge innovation opportunity.
Wow. What one little mindset shift that is, right? From retirement, I leave behind, right? I retire. I leave behind that thing rather than looking forward and I'm looking at my longevity. I mean, my mom's 95. She had to get a pacemaker about 5 years ago. And the doctor said to me, I could have given her a 10-year pacemaker or a 20. And I took one look at your mom and said, oh, she's getting the 20. That's the battery life on that. So without having to go back in again. And I thought, wow, it's a whole different mindset of how we look at aging today and the resources that we have. So Melora, when you think about communicating new products, new services, and even these, incremental, but really mind-blowing shifts of positioning, tell us a little bit about the storytelling work that goes into that. How do you get other people on board with this kind of thinking, and especially leveraging your design background to do that? What are the stories that you tell to do that?
Well, I think it's really infectious to learn how our ideas are meaningful for others. The way to do that is to do it through co-creation. So we actually bring our customers in to work with us, or we will go to them, but it's all about being together with them and co-creating. How might we redefine retirement for you? What are your worries? What are your concerns? And what are ways that we could work together to address those? Having those co-creation moments and then being able to take those stories of what we've heard and what we've learned and how our customers have been reacting to the possibility of what TIAA might do with them. Being able to share that across the organization is massive. It's real easy to rally people around the real stories and not just the hypothesis. Experimentation and hypothesis is also at the center of what we're doing. And we counterbalance that with these moments where we're just sitting and having coffee with our customers and talking, having conversation. I think conversation, observation, and experimentation, and throughout all of that, capturing the stories that we are hearing is a way to bring to life what we're trying to do across our entire organization.
So important. And I was in San Francisco this weekend and in this retreat, and one of the members in the group was a venture capitalist and also an entrepreneur. And she said to me, there is no B2C product that will exist in the future without co-creation, community, and an understanding of the business model together.
Right.
So not that it just serves the business. It would seem that, that product market fit is something that we're always working on kind of in absentia of the client. But now we're getting down to that. What color should it be? How often would you need it? What is the monthly delivery? Do you want it online? Do you want it in person? Like all of these things, if we have direct to consumer experience, there's no way of doing that without community, open source innovation, and crowdsourcing some of the ideas.
Well, I wanted to build on that because I think it's important. This digital world is a truth, but there's also the moment of truth that you need to just talk to someone. And I think that us having the ability, we have advisors who are helping the people we serve. And then we have these digital experiences for them. And just that combination of digital plus the human being to talk to, I think is important, because no matter how automated, no matter what happens in the future with generative AI, there's still going to be those moments where you need to be witnessed. And I think that's what co-creation does for us, is it gives them, our customers, our clients, a chance to express emotion to us and to be heard and seen. And then building that into the innovations that we're creating for them, they can see themselves in it as well, and they feel heard. I think that's just as important. Yeah.
So where does this fall down, do you think? Where is the challenge or the opportunity for, we took the customers' ideas to heart, but they weren't executable, or they weren't profitable, or they didn't translate from Pittsburgh to, Peoria.
Yeah. I think it's about, first of all, embracing experimentation. And with that comes a willingness to take risk and a willingness to learn. Oh, yeah. Phil, I've shared with my teams, I do expect us to fail a few times this year. And if not, we'll have to ask ourselves, are we trying? Are we pushing the edges enough? I think it's important to learn from those moments, probably even more important to learn from those moments than the successes. So we have to be willing to experiment, learn how to pivot, and embrace failure as an essential component of learning. And then from that, also have healthy conversations around, I think, the art of timing. Sometimes something may not quite work yet, but it doesn't mean it won't work soon. So we need to also hold on to ideas that we believe have value and ask ourselves, when is the right moment to bring that forward into our experiences?
This is a conversation that comes up quite a bit. It was ahead of its time. The market wasn't ready for it yet. And the conversation I was just having prior to this one is, are we doing the right level of, as storytellers call, breadcrumbing? Are we doing these little incremental, first of all, are we looking backwards and saying, look how far we've come. Look at the shifts you've made already. Look at the brilliant investments in time and energy and learning. We've come so far. And there's this aspirational place that we get to, but all we have to do today is the next right step. So it feels like sometimes that timing discussion is, are we telling the right story that actually gives people breadcrumbs rather than like whole bakeries to try to surmount, to get to that next step on the path? Like, we need little bits at a time, because for our human existence, incremental change is so much more digestible than disruption or transformation. We get there, but it's the small steps, it feels like, that we have to help our customers get to one step at a time.
And, as long as we've done it in a way where the customer can see the possibility, I think that hope is exponential. And if they see, those little incremental things, and they're going on the journey of change with us, there's something that can be incredibly rewarding, where they're willing to hang in there with you because they can see where this might go, especially if they're seeing their own needs, their own pain points being addressed along the way. I think you touched upon something, though, that I want to talk about, and that's those little incremental innovations. I think those are just as important and should be as celebrated as the great, big, disruptive change we might do. And sometimes those little innovations could make an even bigger impact than what we realize. A simplification of a flow or the tweaking of a few words can actually change a mindset, change the experience someone is having with your products. And I think those are just as important.
And how do you get other people on board internally with the changes that you want to make? What techniques, maybe some advice that you can give to some of my listeners about getting other people on board with cool ideas and shifts that are happening?
Yes. Storytelling, this is why, again, fan of the podcast, it is about innovation storytelling and bringing the humans you serve to life. We are experimenting with something right now that I do want to share. We are going to be creating an event that will help all our employees immerse themselves in who the customers are that we serve. And I'll tell you, it's really diverse. We are serving people from at the beginning of their career, while they're accumulating for their retirement, while they're transitioning, and while they're living in retirement. We are serving people who are maybe the groundskeeper or working in the kitchen of an institution to the highest paid professional of an institution. So the diversity is quite impressive. And bringing that to life so that each individual in our company can have their own stories, I think is important. So we're creating this immersive event that will help them understand who we serve, but then also understand how they experience us, how they are experiencing our digital experiences, our human interactions, bringing to life the opportunity we have. We are making a lot of great innovation that we'll be sharing with the employees as well, but there's still so much room to go. And so we're hoping by immersing every employee in this day with who we serve and how they experience us, that they themselves can see how they and their job might be able to contribute to the mission we're on to address the retirement crisis. It could be something as small as we were talking about, just the turn of a phrase can change a mind, to big ideas they might have. And so we're building in a feedback loop that as they think about things we could be doing to continuously improve and address the needs of our customers, we hope that everyone really joins it and it becomes like a movement towards addressing the crisis where every individual feels personally connected and that they walk away from this event with their own stories. I think having your own story, especially when you're trying to make a decision in your daily work, if you can remember what you heard or remember what someone said, it can help you actually make better decisions because you have that story, that person's voice in your head. And it's a way to get outside your own thinking and really have a more broad perspective that's really grounded in empathy. So it's an experiment. I hope we learn from it. I know we'll learn from it, but I will say this, just my hypothesis is by making something deeply personal to you, you can't help but want to try to solve the problem. So I think we'll see, all of this wonderful, diverse people that work at TIAA come together and start innovating together in ways we have yet to imagine.
This is what you're describing is such a cornerstone of innovation storytelling as I see it and as I practice it. So I was an anthropology major, but I was also a religion major, and I was fascinated with how the prophets moved the word around the world well before Twitter. And as communicators, what were they doing to get all of us on board? I mean, they might have had a little help from on high, got it. But there are specific steps that these prophets took in order to do exactly what you're talking about. And when you do the analysis on what parables are, it is fact, here's what I want you to know. It's story, here's an experience of the thing, of the fact that I just told you, followed by another fact. And so that sandwich, that story sandwich is important because that last fact then ask the question, and what about you? I take the story, I internalize your story, and then the prophet, and this is where a lot of leaders don't do the thing. They say, tell us about an experience now from your situation. How did my idea of getting to heaven, of heaven and hell, of sin and glory, all of these things, now tell it to me in your words. And then when that person can do that, that's the transformation. Now I've been converted, and now I'm willing to convert others. But if we don't present the information in this way, what we have is your great story. And I can't tell you how many leaders call me and say, I want you to come in and give a workshop on storytelling because everyone uses my stories, or keep just repeating my story, which is great, but they haven't made it their own. And so that next level down, I think what you're doing is so groundbreaking and such good advice for my listeners too, is to say, how do I get all people involved and how do I get them to tell their personal story? Because that's a richness, right? Then you have a book in a year from now of the stories of all of your employees and probably a lot of your customers and other stakeholders who can say, and here's it from my lens. Which, by the way, just makes all the facets of the diamond shine. If we only have our leader's story, that is a very dull diamond.
Yes. This is a yes and. What you're talking about, I mean, to me, that's what's transformative. When every individual feels personally connected to our mission and has, as we were talking about, the stories in their head that they can translate into their daily work and make better decisions. I just think that's transformative. And you said it, you know, that kind of transformation. I'm hoping that I can maybe come back one day and share with you how it went. Because I think this is something that I'm sure companies dream of doing or would love to be able to do. And I just feel so honored that I work in a company that is so focused on on putting our clients, our customers at the center. And so being able to do something like this was just like a no-brainer. Of course we should do this. You know, our executive committee all the way throughout the organization and the company, they are aware of this event and they're all on board. And it's wonderful to have that kind of support.
Yeah. So, and you think about the stories that will come out of that, you know, if you do it right, like any of the prophets, will be talking about them for the next 2,000, 5,000 years, depending on your perspective, right? That's the longevity of story too.
That's true. And look at us. You know, we are over 100 years old, this company. We want
Wow.
to be around for another 100 years.
Yes. And I'm sure the stories that float around the hallways of TR go all the way back to its founder, right? And its founding and its principles all the way today. So, Melora, I want to first ask you, I have two questions for you first before we get into our hot seat questions. What is some advice you think that, given your experience, and it's so diverse, that other innovators could learn from your punk rock to patents life in the corporate space and the design space too?
There's real truth in being willing to be uncomfortable. I think that's most important. If we're not taking risk and challenging ourselves and being students for life, there's so much we could miss out on as far as opportunities to solve some of the big hard problems or even the tiniest problems as we've discussed. I think it's important to be willing to get uncomfortable, learn something, challenge yourself to learn something really hard every year if you can, to keep yourself growing. But again, being humbled by how much more there's still to learn. I think also being really grounded in who you are serving is important, and really coming to your customers with a beginner's mind. It's hard for us to put aside our own bias, our own assumptions, but I think it's important to practice beginner's mind as we meet the people we serve and we're designing for or innovating for, because again, you could find what others have missed when you do that. If you are listening to someone and all you're thinking about is how to solve that problem, you get obsessed with the problem and you miss the words the person is saying. And there could be diamonds in there that you really want to be able to hear. So that's one thing. And then the last thing I'll say is, I think it's important to develop the superpower of being able to skydive while time traveling. We've got to be able, you can do it. You got to be able to
All work.
the 500,000 foot view while diving deep down into the details, all the while being very conscious, present in the moment you're in, while also being able to see the past of where you've been and also where you're headed. And this helps us when we're running experiments and talking about the art of timing, for example, by being aware of patterns of the past, feelings, emotions of the past, understanding where we are now, and then where we might be, how might society evolve and change, technology, etc. Being ready for that. You've got to be able to time travel while also being able to see the big picture and the details within.
Such good advice. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to move on to our hot seat questions.
Okay.
Greatest innovation of all time. What's your choice?
Okay. I have to tell you, I'm obsessed with accessibility and inclusion. And at TIAA, we are hyper focused on that because the breadth of people we serve, the diversity of people we serve. 1 in 4 people have a disability of some sort. It's not always visual. You can't see it necessarily. And we really recognize that where we are, and the innovations we're doing today are taking that into account. So that leads me to one of these very simple innovations, that animated sticker and messenger that I told you about. This is one that's just so surprising, and yet it took somebody to see I need to address that problem. And I'm going to tell you about the curb cut effect.
What's that?
a few Berkeley students, they poured a concrete slab for better curb access. So when crossing the street, it would be easier to walk up onto the curb. So they created a concrete slab for that. And that was in the 70s. And then in the 90s, ADA required curb cuts at every intersection. And what's turned out is this is not only valuable for people in wheelchairs, people with broken legs, but pets on leashes, baby strollers. And it's like
Women in high heels. Thank you.
and it's like oxygen. It's another one of those examples that we don't even think twice about it. But somebody came up with that idea, and it was these students at Berkeley. And I think it's just the hallmark of universal design, highly accessible design that is, really key to an example of an inclusive mindset and how all access design and those innovations, they lead to better experiences for everybody. So that's my favorite.
Oh, I love that. Tell me what innovation team you would have loved to be a part of.
This is hard for me. I've gone back and forth, but I would have loved to have been in the room when the Beatles recorded Revolver, because that was one of those pivotal moments where they went from being that kind of bubblegum pop band, really good,
Brilliant, probably.
artists. And I love those moments where, and I think there's a theme in here of that small switch that's changed, and they suddenly had this breakthrough of an album that set them on a whole nother trajectory where we got Sgt. Pepper's, we got the White Album and so on. Revolver, I would have loved to have been in the room to see how did that happen.
So backup, producer, soundboard mixer, which role would you have taken?
Fly on the wall.
Fly on even that. Good enough. Fantastic. And what's an innovation that you wish existed in the world that would cause you great joy, or at least stop you from cursing something out?
I think I'm going to come back to I am so happy about where I am right now. I am so passionate about addressing longevity and aging. And I wish I could reinvent what aging meant to us. And I'm tackling that. I think at TIAA, we have that chance to redefine it. And we're living longer. Susan, we're living longer. It's just a truth. Babies born today are going to be over 100. We know it. So I want us to move away from our fears of aging. And so I wish we could address it. And I think at TIAA, there's a chance to do that. Let's change that fear into hope and excitement. Let's change it to confidence and embracing a healthy life, a long life, and it's going to have many different phases in it. And let's just prepare together and build confidence that we're creating a life that we can feel it's been worth living. And it's so corny, but that's what I wish I could invent, and will try to, because I know TIAA is on the same mission.
I just love that. And for all of us, right, who don't want to face a future of quiet desperation, but of more flourishing, more learning, more vitality as we get older is the ideal. So on behalf of all of us, thank you for undertaking that mission. We appreciate it. Melora, if you want to get in touch with you and your brilliant design thinking mind, what's the best way to do that?
I think the best way to do that is to reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me today, Melora. I'm sure everyone is going to love this and can't wait to hear how your employee summit goes with all of this new experimentation and quest for innovation from the group. Thank you so much.